In my opinion, the Las Vegas Raiders made one of the best picks in the 2023 NFL Draft when they selected Michael Mayer. He's arguably one of the best tight ends in Notre Dame football history, is someone who I believe will translate perfectly to the NFL, and has a great story. He completely dominated for the Fighting Irish, was a 5-star recruit back in his high school days, and now will look to build a long-term career in the NFL. In today's video, I want to introduce you to who Michael Mayer is. We're to go through his insane journey, how he became a 5-star recruit, how he rewrote the school record books for Notre Dame, and why he has so much hype for the Raiders. But before we get started, be sure to leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new and love college football content, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I could cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the rise of Michael Mayer. So going back in time, kids who grew up in Covington, Kentucky dream of playing basketball. Many kids can be found shooting the basketball in their driveway, and as a kid, he was no different. He pretended he was John Wall, as everyone loves Kentucky basketball in the area. He also loved the Cincinnati Bengals. He said, quote, "I remember being a Bengals fan, and I remember Ocho Cinco and TJ Houshmandzadeh. Mayer was always a great athlete, but originally football was not his thing. He said he didn't really enjoy it when he was little, and in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, his sights were on playing basketball, more specifically at the collegiate level. He had an absolute love for the game, like a lot of kids in Kentucky do, and he preferred 5-on-5 as opposed to 11-on-11. Over time though, football would grow on him, as physically he'd start to look more like a football player, but it took a while for him to be sold. His 8th grade Christmas present changed everything, as his parents got him a bench press. He said, quote, "I got a bench press in the basement, started lifting, and I lost my jump shot. I couldn't shoot worth anything, so I played football my freshman year and kind of just took off from there. I got bigger, stronger, faster, and everything like that." Mayer didn't know it at the time, but his family had actually worked behind the scenes to give him a push towards football. His dad and the head coach were good friends, and they saw it as a way to make him a football player instead of a basketball player. Not knocking on his basketball skills, but they just saw his future in football. His basketball coach actually thought that he could have won Mr. Basketball in the state of Kentucky because he was that good at that sport as well. Once he walked onto the football field at Covington Catholic High School, Mayer never came off. He played defensive end, linebacker, and tight end. The freshman team went 9-0, and he was the future of the program. His coach said he was raw, but he was also great. He said, quote, "He came out and excelled right off the bat. He didn't know the techniques, but he had a high motor and was a leader on the field. He was a natural athlete and was just too good to take off the field. I guess he also hit kids so hard that he gave a player a concussion and even broke a kid's ribs. Despite his obvious potential, he was still no lock to play football. His coach was worried he wasn't going to come back as a sophomore because he still had that basketball dream in the back of his mind. So he got Michael's older brother, the team's quarterback, to beg him to play with him as he was a senior, and he convinced Michael on playing on the same team on varsity for 1 year. This would change everything. Once he noticed how good he had become, it hit him. He said, "Once you realize you're good at something, you kind of start liking it a little bit more. And I realized football was probably the best thing for me going forward. I switched to football, but I still have a very big passion for basketball." When it came time to figure out recruiting, he was being scouted as both a defensive and offensive player, and some coaches actually thought he had more potential on the defensive side of the ball. He was a big deal, but after his junior season, he became a blue-chip recruit. As a junior, he caught 46 passes for 1,029 yards and 12 touchdowns. He was also the team's leading tackler, including 18 tackles for loss. He's the most physical player on the field, and Mayer's team went 29-1 in those 2 years. They won the Class 5A state championship and finished as a runner-up in 2018. He was consistently ranked as a top 200 recruit, but where is he to end up going? Well, his first ever offer came from the Kentucky Wildcats, and rather quickly, blue blood programs began to offer Mayer, and he fell in love with one particular school, and apparently said on his second visit he knew where he was going to go. He'd end his recruitment 2 years before he'd arrive at the school, as he committed to the Fighting Irish on July 1st of 2018. He selected Notre Dame over offers from Bama, Georgia, LSU, Kentucky, and Ohio State. Notre Dame had offered Mayer late in his sophomore year, and he had visited South Bend in January for their junior day, and then by the summer, he made his decision. Why the Fighting Irish? He said, quote, "They're obviously tight end you and produce tight ends in the NFL while getting a good education. If football doesn't work out in the end, then you still have a good degree, and they're always up there year in and year out. It's an unbelievable experience to know they want me on their team." Mayer was a big deal, and every school in the country wanted him. He was named the 2019 Gatorade Kentucky Football Player of the Year, and as a senior, he caught 49 passes for 970 yards and 15 touchdowns, while also running the ball for 2 scores. In terms of his ranking, he was only ranked behind Georgia commits Arik Gilbert and Darnell Washington, both of which were 5 stars. While researching, I found out that 24/7 Sports only had those two guys ranked higher because they were just more physically dominant. Everyone knew that Michael Mayer was the most skilled tight end in the class of 2020. According to 24/7 Sports, Mayer was a 5-star, the number 3 tight end, and the 23rd best player in the class of 2020. Notre Dame fans were ecstatic to have him coming to campus, and they already projected him as the next big thing. So, how would Mayer end up doing one state over in South Bend? When Mayer arrived at Notre Dame, he was immediately given so much hype, and that was because of all the incredible talent that Notre Dame had pumped out into the NFL. Since Brian Kelly had become the head coach, they had sent 8 tight ends off to the NFL, most notably guys such as Kyle Rudolph, Tyler Eifert, and Cole Kmet. Mayer looked like the next guy in line, and Tommy Rees was his offensive coordinator, and a guy who played with both Rudolph and Eifert at Notre Dame, and had this to say, quote, "I don't mean any disrespect to any of those guys that I played with, but Mike Mayer has the ability to be the best tight end to ever come here." He'd end up foreshadowing his insane career, as Mayer broke out as a freshman. He caught his first career touchdown in Week 3 against Florida State, had a career-high 5 catches in their win over number 1 Clemson, and then also helped them get to the ACC championship game. While they would lose to Clemson, they go to the college football playoff, where he caught a season-high 7 passes for 62 yards against Bama. They ended up losing, but he finished the year with 42 catches for 450 yards and 2 touchdowns. He'd beaten out Brock Wright as the starting guy, and in 2021, Michael Mayer would start his college football takeover. In Week 1, in an overtime thriller against Florida State, Mayer caught 9 passes for 120 yards and a touchdown, and then followed it up with 2 touchdowns in a gutsy win over Toledo. Jack Cohn was now his quarterback, and Mayer would continue to go off. He helped them beat number 18 Wisconsin, had nearly 100 yards in their loss to number 7 Cincinnati, helped them beat USC and North Carolina, caught a touchdown against Virginia, had a touchdown against Georgia Tech, and then went over 100 yards with 9 catches against Stanford. He had a great season for a tight end, but would save his best for last. Against number 9 Oklahoma State, he caught 7 passes for 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. They would unfortunately lose to Oklahoma State in the first game of the Marcus Freeman era, but Mayer had a great year. He finished with 71 catches for 840 yards and 7 touchdowns. He was having wide receiver-like production despite being a tight end. In 2022, he'd have his best season yet, as while he did struggle in their Week 1 loss to number 2 Ohio State, he would have a couple of really notable games. He had 8 catches for over 100 yards and a touchdown in their loss to Marshall, had a touchdown in their close victory over Cal, had nearly 100 yards and a touchdown in their road victory against North Carolina, and then, in his future stadium, went off against BYU. He got a career-high 11 passes for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns in Allegiant Stadium as they knocked off the number 16 Cougars. This got Notre Dame back on the right path, as he then went for over 100 yards in a win over UNLV, helped them beat number 16 Syracuse, and then had a touchdown in their blowout victory over number 4 Clemson. From there, he'd finish his career with wins over Navy and Boston College, before his final game would come against USC. Against the number 6 Trojans, he caught 8 passes for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Mayer would go down in history for them. He finished the year with 67 catches for 809 yards and 9 scores. What's crazy is the 6'4" tight end had at least 1 catch in all 36 games he played at Notre Dame, and in his 3 years, he left with 3 school records for tight ends. He had the most yards with 2009, the most catches with 180, and the most touchdowns with 18. He set the single-season record for touchdowns by a tight end this past year, and is 3rd on Notre Dame's all-time reception list, regardless of position. That is exactly why he went to Notre Dame in the first place. He said, quote, "I really enjoyed my experience at Notre Dame, and that was the first reason I picked Notre Dame was because of the NFL. It was on my mind for a very long time, and I saw a lot of good tight ends in the NFL from Notre Dame, so that was the reason I went there." He would definitely leave a legacy, and despite an up and down 3 years for Notre Dame, Mayer was always consistent. Some thought he could be a first-round pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, but most thought he'd be an early second-round pick. That is what would end up happening, as in a deep tight end class, he was selected with the 35th overall pick by the Las Vegas Raiders. Immediately, some were comparing him to both Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski, and the Raiders will gladly take that comparison. They just ended up losing Darren Waller, and they need a guy who could step in right away and make plays. While they do have Austin Hooper and OJ Howard, general manager Dave Ziegler said that Mayer was their 15th rated player on their draft board, so they were happy to take him at number 35, and he is the future at the position for them. He was the 3rd tight end to be drafted this year behind Utah's Dalton Kincaid and Iowa's Sam Laporta, and ended up getting drafted higher than Darnell Washington and Derek Gilbert, who's currently at Nebraska. Raiders fans are super excited for this pick, and so was I. He has the frame, he has the height, he has the production, he has the mindset, and he has the hands. The one thing he said he could get better at is run blocking, and while he may not be the fastest player in the world, Mayer's going to get the job done, and in my opinion, is going to be the best tight end from this draft class, which is absolutely loaded, and I'm pumped to see what he's going to do in a Raiders uniform this year. I think by the end of it, he'll be a starter, and he could go down as a potential Hall of Fame tight end in my eyes. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's how much I've liked the guy, and ever since he started playing at Notre Dame, I thought he was a big deal. But what do you guys think? If you're a Notre Dame or Raiders fan, what do you think of Michael Mayer? What rookie should I take a look at next? And what topic should I cover next on the channel? Be sure to let me know down below. Leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen, including my video about the rise of Aiden O'Connell. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.